Today we're going to compare the iPhone SE versus the iPhone 11, and it's obvious that the iPhone 11 does have the ultra wide angle lens, which the SE doesn't. Now I heard that the SE does have the same camera module as the iPhone 8, so we're going to really compare how well the main camera do against each other. Okay, so this is the low light part, and the big difference here is that I'm shooting 4K 30 right now. It can go up to 4K 60 if I wanted to, and on the SE it's only up to 1080 30. Now the SE doesn't do night mode, which is a bummer, and the chip is more than enough powerful to do, but I think just paying $400 for an iPhone, you gotta lose something. Starting off with portrait mode, the iPhone 11 does give off a bit more blur than the SE. And even so, the iPhone 11 for the front-facing camera does have some trouble with my glasses. Usually that area is pretty tough on phones. Now going back to the back camera on the iPhone SE, you can tell that it's also struggling on the same corner on my glasses. And the iPhone SE is not able to do portrait mode on objects or pets. And also the iPhone 11 doesn't have the best cutout for complex shapes. But I would rather have portrait mode on everything than nothing at all. Now the only way to get some sort of background blur on the SE is getting the object close enough, unless you're gonna use some third-party camera app. On the front-facing camera for low light, it's not that good on the SE. On my black sweater, you can tell that a lot of noise is happening, the artifacts is coming out, so it's just not as good. For the back cameras, they're pretty similar. There are some slight differences for the colors, like the green on the 11 is just more vibrant, it's just more saturated. And same for the sky, it is a bit more blue than SE, so for colors, it does pop a bit more on the 11. Of course, you do have the ultra wide angle lens on the 11, which is pretty helpful and handy if you're in tight spaces or you just want to use a different perspective. These iPhones don't have a telephoto lens, so zooming all the way in, the quality is pretty similar to each other. And the HDR is a bit better on the 11 as well. As you can tell, the shadows on SE is pretty dark and it's starting to become a little bit mushy. So looking at the finer details, the iPhone SE camera is not as good as the 11, but then again, it's not too far off. Now moving on to low light, the iPhone 11's ultra wide angle lens starts to suffer a lot. So if you're in really dark places, then you're just better off sticking with the main camera lens. And for color wise, it's still the same as daytime. On 11, you can tell that the greens is still way more vibrant than SE. In some areas, the HDR is better on the iPhone 11, as you can tell that stream of light behind this truck. That building wall still has a lot of detail and you can still see the lighting in the wall, whereas on the iPhone SE, it's all blown out. Another thing the iPhone SE does not have is night mode, which the 11 does automatically, so it feels really seamless when you're taking the picture. The night mode does make a difference in terms of brightness, but sometimes it can look too fake, and also it depends on how you take your pictures. When you're outside, I think it's fine, but if you're indoors like a bar or like a restaurant or something, then some people or even like a little kid may not want to stand still for 3 or more seconds. Alright, move on to video. For stabilization, hands down the iPhone 11 wins. I'm not sure if it's only my unit, but every time when I take a step, I can see those tiny micro jitters. And for the colors, the iPhone 11 seems to be on the cooler side, whereas on SE, it's a bit warmer. You both can shoot 4K 60, and looking at the grass, it's still more vibrant on the 11 as well. In terms of the UI and performance, it's still the same thing. I don't really notice a big difference between the two, but as the final result, of course the iPhone 11 is a bit better in terms of the color. And since the 11 does have the ultra wide angle lens, you can also record 4K 60 on that as well. Now for low light, I've seen a bigger difference between the two. On iPhone SE, when it's really dark out and I'm panning around, it seems to give a lower shutter speed or that laggy look. When there's a lot of lights from buildings and street lights, it's okay, but I do notice a bit more noise on iPhone SE as well. Recording on the ultra wide angle lens on iPhone 11, it doesn't look too great. I would avoid it personally, and I think the iPhone SE looks better than the iPhone 11 in ultra wide. For 4K 60 performance, it's still really good overnight. There's no stuttering, but I do notice on iPhone 11, you can see more in the darker spots. So overall, I think the iPhone SE is good enough for the average person. Quality wise, I think it's 85% there on SE versus the 11. So yes, the pictures on SE can be a bit more blown out or more noisy, but for the normal person, I don't think they would notice that. If you're more serious about your camera quality on your phone, then go for the 11 or the 11 Pro. So that is my comparison between the iPhone SE and iPhone 11. Please follow me on Instagram, give a like, subscribe, hit the bell, and thanks for watching.